Welcome to another week right here in Metro Atlanta. I'm Sarah Maslowski with KeyPoint Homes Group. And today we are coming to you talking about our multiple offers back. And I know it's kind of crazy to even think that this could be the case, especially when you see the headlines that are in the news talking about the real estate market and what is going on across the country. But you may be surprised at what you're finding out there. So tonight's live stream is going to be interesting. My husband is not home, so he cannot corral the dogs. So uh, who knows how this is going to go, but we'll have lots of background participation, no doubt, from my 3 dogs that are just outside this room. And so for those of you that have not been following along every single week, or if you're new to the channel, we are renovating my house. And so we're living in our basement and actually filming my basement. So the dogs, everyone, we're all right down here in the basement. Who knows how much longer we have of living down here. I think we're at the halfway mark of renovating. I don't know if you've ever renovated a house before and lived through it, but it's a nightmare. So every time I go into a new construction house, I'm like, man, this would be so nice just to buy completely brand new and not have to worry about renovating a house. But welcome to the live stream. I would love to know where you're tuning into us from. Right on cue, the dogs out there barking. So that's going to happen all throughout, at least until my husband gets home and maybe he can make them be quiet. But I would love to know where you're watching from, and would love to know if you are considering making a move to the Metro Atlanta area or anywhere in Georgia. Of course, if you have questions, go ahead and drop your questions in the chat below. I would love to answer those throughout the live stream. So today's topic is our multiple offers back in Atlanta. And I'm curious to see, one, where you're watching from, two, what is the real estate market where you are? What's going on there? What are you hearing from neighbors? What are you hearing from family and friends? Like, what's happening? So if you watch the news and if you see the headlines, right, it's like doom and gloom out there in the real estate world, and things are up and things are down. And it's so hard to kind of like make sense of what's going on. And one of the, I saw a really great post in a real estate agent Facebook group, and this got me thinking. I'm like, this is a great topic for the live stream, because I am personally seeing this day in and day out working with buyers right now in the Metro Atlanta market, and that is our multiple offers back. So I am going to share this with y'all. Let me take this off. So this was a Facebook post that was made in a Facebook group of real estate agents. And, oh, dang it, I did not screenshot the right one. But anyways, the original post was they listed a house in Texas. It had over 66 offers. This is what the agent said. In the post, it was a text message to all those that did not win on this house. And the agent said, hey, sorry, you lost. You're one of 66 offers. And then there were hundreds of comments from agents all across the country commenting. One, a lot of agents kind of thought that that house was underpriced. And so that's why it kind of generated that many offers. But this, I just wanted to show you some examples of what other agents across the country are seeing. So Alexandra commented that there was 34 offers here in Sacramento, California. The home was priced accordingly. It was only $435,000. And she got this text message from the agent that they put in an offer to. And you can see there in that text message, it said that they were one of 34 offers and they did not win. So that was in California. Here is another agent in Maryland saying that they're getting back to the craziness again. And another agent saying that they're seeing this in Ocean City. And then Linda made a comment that in Richmond, Virginia, although we're receiving multiple offers, it's not due to underpricing. It's pent up buyer demand. And so this was something that I felt like was very important for us to talk about, is multiple offers. And if you've been watching the live stream for the past couple of weeks, I've been talking about how I've personally worked with buyers over the past couple of weeks, and we've been in multiple offer situations. And you might be asking yourself, like, how is this possible in this market when we're seeing what the news is saying and we're seeing that mortgage rates are high? Like, why is this happening? So we're going to dive into a little bit more of this, and we're going to answer like how, if you're in a multiple offer situation, what tools do you have in your tool belt to succeed in a multiple offer situation without having to like throw the baby out with the bathwater and do kind of like the extreme things that maybe some buyers had to do during the pandemic. So if you're just joining us, thank you for joining the live stream. I would love to know where you're watching from. We've got Jay Acosta watching us from New Jersey. Welcome. Leonardo is joining us again. He is from Chicago. Welcome, welcome. We've got Anthony Banks joining us as well. So we appreciate you being here. I appreciate that. So let's go back and dig into multiple offer situations and what you can do for this. But first, I'm going to give you some stats. So I have some stats from the Metro Atlanta market, and this kind of helps maybe explain a little bit of why we're seeing multiple offer situations. So I'm going to share my screen with you here. Let's see here. All right. So you should be able to see my screen right here. So this is directly from the MLS system. This is pulling data. Now this is through the end of February. And what we are looking at right here is this is the average sales price. And this whole graph gives you a 3-year time span. But you can kind of see that in February of 2023, the average sales price, this is for Cumming. Let's see what the greater Atlanta area is. Take Cumming off. So for all of kind of like the greater metro Atlanta area, the average sales price for a home at the end of February was $386,000, almost $387,000, right? You can see that in January it was $375,000. And so we kind of had like this dip in December, January time period. And then you can kind of see that this is going back up for the average sales price. One of the areas that we cover a lot here on this channel and that I personally serve is in Cumming. And you can see that the average sales price in Cumming was $520,000. So that's definitely become a popular area, and it's gotten expensive to be in Cumming comparatively. Let's take a look at Swanee. That's another location that we get a lot of phone calls on. So surprisingly, from January to February, Swanee had a tiny bit of a dip, right? So we had 543 in January to 525 there in February. And then another area that has a little bit more affordable housing comparatively is here in Brazelton. And so 429 in February, 420 in January. So this gives you a look at what the average sales price is. But the reason why we are kind of seeing multiple offer situations, and I'm going to go to, what am I looking for? Month supply. Here we go. All right. Let's click these off. So this is the supply. This is the available homes on the market over the past 3 years. So you see in 2021, 2022, we had limited supply, right? That was during the pandemic, not as many people putting their homes on the market. And then we saw kind of like mid 2022, we had some more people put their homes on the market, and we kind of had a peak in October, and then inventory has just kind of steadily fallen. And so if you see that in February of 2023, we had 1.8 month supply of inventory in all of Metro Atlanta area. Now, this all of Metro Atlanta area, 1.8 months of supply, that just means that if we had no new buyers enter the market, how long would it take with the current demand that we have in place to sell through all the homes that are currently on the MLS system? And as of right now, it would take 1.8 months to do that. So we consider a balanced market in the real estate industry about 6 months. So if you have 6 months supply of inventory, usually you have an equal amount of buyers and an equal amount of sellers. And that's kind of like where the middle ground is. Anytime you have less than 6 months supply, technically you are in a seller's market. The lower that months of supply goes, the more leverage a seller has in that market. So you see that when we were back in the pandemic, that was 1.3, 1 month supply of inventory. Well, really, we're just kind of barely above that 1 month supply of inventory. So we don't have as much inventory as what we did during the pandemic. And that is when we had all of those multiple offer situations. One, because interest rates were really low, but also inventory was really low. So now we have really low inventory. If you look in Cumming, you have even lower supply of inventory. You have 1.2 months supply. There's hardly any homes out there for sale, y'all. And if we look at Swanee, that has a 1.1 month supply of inventory. again, really, really, really low. And if you look comparatively for the past couple of months, that is almost the lowest it's been since April of last year. And then let's take a look at Brazelton. There's a little bit more supply in Brazelton. Okay, and so that's even above the average market there. There's 2 months supply of inventory, 2.5 months supply. Really, a lot of that is driven by there's a lot of new construction homes in Brazelton. So that's why you see it. So there's the dogs making an appearance. So one of the reasons that we have multiple offers situations, again, in the metro Atlanta area is the fact that supply is so low. There's hardly any houses out there to see. Now, I say that, of course, there's homes for sale. And if you're a buyer, if you're moving here, if you're working with me, you are set up on a home search. And so you are getting homes as soon as they hit the market, they're coming to your inbox. And I guarantee you, the very first email that I send you, you're getting maybe 20, 30 homes that match your criteria where you want to be. And so you're going through and you're kind of making an analysis of those homes and you're like, okay, these I kind of like, and the rest of these, this just doesn't fit what I'm looking for. So every single day you are actively like waiting for that new email to come through to see if anything new has hit the market. And when there is something new that hits the market, that's a good one. It's got great photographs, it's staged well, it's priced right. And you're like, this is a good one. All these other ones kind of look like duds, but I can see this one looks very promising. You and 15 other people are thinking that exact same thing. So what happens? Everyone rushes out. Oh, we have to hurry up and see this house. And that is the prime way that we get a multiple offer situation is when a good house hits the market, good staging, good pricing, it's in good condition, that is going to drive the activity. And that is exactly what I've been experiencing with buyers here in this market is that when we see a really good house that hits the market, we think it's good and so does everybody else. And so that is when we're in a multiple offer situation. So Leonardo says, I think that was replying to somebody else, but we'll get to your comments here in just a second. And so you may be thinking to yourself, gosh, darn it, I do not want to be in a multiple offer situation. I thought we were out of this. What's going on? And for the best houses, you are likely going to be in a multiple offer situation. And as these interest rates keep going down, as they have been since the banking crisis, that happened last week and the week before, and as these interest rates kind of hold hopefully steady at this like lower rate comparatively to what we've been seeing, more buyers are coming out to buy houses. All of these buyers couldn't buy houses during the pandemic because they didn't have $30,000, $40,000 over asking to pay in cash for these homes. And so now they want to buy a house too. And yet we might be back in those multiple offer situations. So goodness, what can you do in a multiple offer situation? So we're going to talk about some tools that you have in your tool belt. And this is something that I go over with buyers when we have kind of like our strategy session of kind of putting together, hey, here's some things that we have available to us. When and if this situation happens, we're going to talk about which one of these tools you're comfortable with using. So one of the tools that are available is to limit your contingencies. So in your contract offer that you make to a seller, you have a financing and appraisal contingency. Now that financing contingency protects you so that if a lender looks at your documents and says, whoa, you had a bankruptcy that you didn't tell me about, or you have a tax issue that you didn't disclose, sorry, we cannot loan you the money on this house. You have a legal out of getting out of that contract because the lender can't legally loan you that money or they can't fulfill their obligation. Now, when you work with a really great lender that I partner you with, they are going to fully vet you and get all of that information up front, and they're going to put you kind of like through pre-underwriting. So when they give you that stamp of approval and they tell you how much house you can afford, they have full confidence in knowing that you can move forward and they're going to be able to loan you on the house. A lot of times the conversations that I have with the lender after they talk with you is, hey, these guys are in great shape, fully vetted and approved. We don't need a financing contingency. So that is an option for you. Now you can still have an appraisal contingency where you want to make sure that the house appraises. Now, another tool that we have in our tool belt is that we can see if a home will qualify for what they call an appraisal waiver. And this is where the lender puts the address through the automated underwriting system. And in a lot of cases, not a lot, but in some cases, for these good houses in these good areas, the lender can put it through that system and it's going to kick back what they call an appraisal waiver. That means that the algorithm in their system is saying, hey, based on recent sales in this neighborhood and nearby, based on what we know about the house and the square footage, this house is at value for this offer price. Therefore, if it does go under contract, we do not need to have an appraisal done. We don't have to spend $600 to send an appraiser out there to ensure that it's worth the price. The computer is already saying, this one's good. We know that it's going to appraise. So in those situations, sometimes in the offer, we may also be able to waive that appraisal contingency. So you want to limit your contingencies. That's one way or one tool that you have in your tool belt to win in a multiple offer situation. If a seller is looking at kind of like two identical offers and one person saying like, hey, I don't need a financing contingency. My financing is good. And the other person saying, wait, I need 18 days to get my lender to fully verify this loan. If you're a seller, which one do you think you're going to take? You are going to take that one that says 0 days or even 3 days. So you can play around and limit those days to as little as possible. So if you're just joining us, we are talking about multiple offer situations, and we are seeing those return here in the Metro Atlanta area. And if you're just joining us, if you have any questions about multiple offers or anything about buying or selling for that matter, go ahead and drop that into the chat. I'd love to know where you're watching us from. So limit contingencies. Another good strategy could be to put down more earnest money. So earnest money in Georgia is a gesture of good faith that you're serious about moving forward with this contract. And typically in our market right now, we're seeing on average between 1% to 2% of earnest money. Now, this earnest money is protected during our due diligence period, which we'll talk about that, and during your financing and appraisal contingency if you have one. But the earnest money eventually goes towards your down payment. So you can kind of think of it as like a prepayment of your down payment that's held in this third-party escrow account. Now, if you know that you love this house, if you know that this is the one that you want, and you know that you're going to move forward with this, why not go ahead and put down a little bit more earnest money than what's necessary to show the seller that, hey, you're very serious about this house. You're going to pay the money anyways. It's money that's going towards your down payment. You're just going ahead and paying it, and it's sitting in either the closing attorney or the real estate firm's bank account, just sitting there waiting for closing day. And so this is one way that we can tell the sellers that we are serious about buying this house. Another tool that you have in your tool belt is to have short time frames. So we talked about like limiting your contingencies, but as short of time frames that we can put around those, the better. And one of the best things that we can shorten is that due diligence time period. So in Georgia, during the due diligence time period, that is when you are going to have your home inspections done. And your home inspection, a radon inspection, anything that you want to have done during this home period or this time period. And as a buyer, you have a legal out in the contract. You can terminate your contract for any reason during this time period. You can just simply wake up the next day and change your mind that this house is not for you. And you can tell the seller, sorry, I'm not moving forward, cancel, give me my earnest money back. Completely legal, completely fine. And in fact, it happens. So if you're the seller, you're nervous during this time period. You want to make sure that the buyer is going to move forward. So you want this time period as short as possible. You want that buyer to hurry up and get their inspection done. You want to negotiate any repairs, and you want to get through with this and kind of like on to the next phase of selling. Also, the seller is taking their home off the market during this time period. You're essentially holding on to this house, kind of hoarding it because it's technically under contract with you while you do your inspections and really make sure that you want this house. So in a multiple offer situation, the best tool that we have is to shorten that time frame and have as short of due diligence as possible. I'll give you a really great example. We got some fantastic buyers under contract this week with a contingency on their house to sell, and we beat out another offer because we were able to say, hey, we can come. So we made the offer on Monday. We said, hey, we can come and do the inspection tomorrow at 2 o'clock. Y'all, that's fast. And so I have really great partnerships with really fantastic home inspectors that can get us in there very, very quickly. So we didn't have to like waive our due diligence, but we could get it in there very quickly and have a 5-day due diligence period. Worst case scenario, if something like crazy were to pop up and happen, we could always go back to the seller and say, hey, we need to investigate this a little bit longer. We need a little bit more time. Let's all agree and sign an extension of this due diligence period. Let's just say if we needed to get like a roofer out there or something like that to do a little bit more investigations. So that is something that just so you know that you have that tool in your tool belt to shorten those timeframes as much as possible. And the last tool that I'll touch on today, there's a lot more, but I really encourage you that if a great house comes on the market that you like, you need to act quickly, especially if it's a good one. So we're starting to see more multiple offer situations, but if you act quickly and you quickly offer on that house at a price at which the seller would take, you can avoid that multiple offer situation. So I had another set of great buyers and a fantastic lake house came on the market, and we were able to go out and see it. We made an offer that day, and I knew this was going to be a good one. And for some reason, the agent had listed it on a Monday, and we saw it on a Tuesday, made the offer, negotiated a little bit with the seller Wednesday morning, and got it under contract. And this agent had several showings lined up for the weekend. Most people look at houses on the weekend. And a lot of buyers that were upset because they had also saw it on Wednesday and they were planning on submitting offers, but we had already beat them to the punch. So we avoided that multiple offer situation by acting quickly because we knew this was going to be a good one. And we knew that if we made a good offer that the seller was willing to accept, that we could get this under contract. So I would strongly encourage you. We have a saying here in real estate. Do you want to sleep on it or do you want to sleep in it? And if it's a really good house that you like and you really want to sleep in it and that you want that house to be yours, sometimes we just have to act a little bit quickly. And a lot of times that will help us avoid having to do all those other kind of tools in our tool belt to win in a multiple offer situation because we get to avoid it all together. So if you're thinking about making a move to the Metro Atlanta area, of course, I want to be your real estate agent. My contact information is below this video. But if you're just joining us and you're watching us and you have any questions about buying a house, selling a house, anything about the market from anywhere, make sure you drop that in the comments below. We're going to go through those and answer them. So let's go back up here. And Leonardo says yes to the multiple offers in Atlanta, although Powell hinted at more pain in the economy today. Yes. So I think one thing that's interesting to note is that we're starting to see this pick up even in kind of like this uncertain market. And I think that's important to know. And I think it's here to stay, regardless of what kind of economic news comes out. At least for right now, the Metro Atlanta area has been very insulated from higher interest rates and pricing because we have so many people still moving here from out of state. The Metro Atlanta market is very strong jobs-wise. And there are a lot of people that are still moving here because they've sold their houses in Florida, California, Texas, New Jersey, New York, and they have such a lower cost of living here, and it's such a desirable place to be. So in some ways, we're a little bit insulated from what we're seeing, kind of like the market pressures that may be affecting some more smaller towns or smaller metro markets. Anthony says, I think it's going to be a crazy spring if rates keep coming down, but hopefully that means inventory may increase. Yes, I do think that rates, if we can get the rates in the low sixes and have them kind of stay here for a couple of months, that would be a huge win. And I think that's kind of like the best that we can hope for right now in this market. Gosh, one of the hard things about inventory is that you got to think that if you're a seller and you don't have to sell, so we know sellers sometimes have to sell, like if they get married, they go through a divorce, there's a death in the family, grandma died and now it's time to sell her estate, or people having babies and they just simply need more space. So they have to sell for those reasons, or jobs. Like those are kind of the reasons that cause a seller to kind of like have to sell. Those are the houses that we're seeing hit the market right now. Those people that have to sell. What we're not seeing hit the market right now are those people that just want to sell because they want to be in a different neighborhood, or they want a bigger backyard, or they want a newer house. Those sellers, most of them, have an interest rate that's in the 3, 4s, and they're looking at that 6% interest rate, or they're seeing the cost that it would take to get into a house, and they're thinking, man, I do not want to take my, even if I have $100,000 in equity, put it into that house, into the new house, have a higher interest rate, and still have a higher payment. A lot of those sellers are just saying, no, I'm good. I'm going to stick it out here for a little bit longer. Or if you're like me, you're saying, okay, I'm going to renovate my house and we're going to plant our roots here and we're going to be here. So I don't expect to see like a huge surge in inventory that's going to meet the amount of buyer demand that we have. So I still think we're kind of like in this messy middle for a long haul of not having enough houses and having way more buyer demand out there. There's a huge amount of buyer demand for kind of like that first time home buyer market. I'm working with an investor friend right now. So they flip houses, and they're kind of like sweet spot for finding a house to flip is between 200, 275. Y'all, the demand for those types of houses, insane crazy. So there was a house that was priced for, what was it, 220, and it needed like a lot of work. We're talking about the tenants just destroyed this house, smoked in it, needs all new everything in this house. And it was a ranch in Lawrenceville, and multiple cash offers, way over asking price the very first day. So there's a lot of people out there with cash that are buying these first-time homebuyer price points, which is making it very incredibly hard for people to get into a first-time homebuyer price point. And that kind of like first-time homebuyer price point just keeps going up and up and up. And I really feel bad for people in that price point because it is hard. Rich enjoyed. I noticed above 300K homes for sale in North Georgia are staying longer on the market. So yes, and that kind of depends, right? So it depends on like all of these multiple offer situations that I've been in here recently, and that I'm talking to other real estate agents that I work with day in and day out. These are all in kind of like $400,000, $500,000, $600,000, $700,000 price points. So it's not unique to under 300,000 price points. And if a home is still staying on the market and it's been more than, let's say, 2 weeks, then likely it was overpriced to begin with, or there's something off with the condition of that house, where the condition of the home is not matching up with the pricing of the home. So the way that you create that multiple offer situation is a good price with a good house in good condition. And that's what we're seeing like really take off. So that could mean, though, that you have great opportunity for a house that has been sitting on the market. If you can overlook the fact that it needs new paint, or that it needs new carpet, or that the agent has really crappy pictures, that is a huge opportunity to get it for less than what they're asking for. Yeah, Leonardo said, because they're not move-in ready. Yep, great point. Nobody wants to put money into their house, especially when the rates are this high. Yes, and I said this at the beginning, it's hard to go through a renovation. It's a little bit easier if it's just paint and carpet. But if you're really having to like completely overhaul a house, or, nothing's been touched since the 1980s, it's hard to go through that renovation. So definitely some opportunities there. Scott, about how often do buyers go with the first offer received? I think you mean the sellers, right? So typically for a seller, the first offer is usually the best offer, right? That's like the historical advice that you've heard. And if I'm a listing agent, if I'm selling your house and we price it right, it's staged right, and I know that this is going to be a hot one, I'm preparing the market of, hey, we're listing this house on Thursday. We're not having showings until Friday. I'm having an open house on Saturday and Sunday, and my seller is going to be reviewing offers Sunday night. And that tells the market, hey, you got 3 days to get your highest and best offer in. So you have some agents that approach it that way, but then you have a lot of agents that don't do that, and they just put it out there. And yeah, they go back to their seller and they say, hey, day one, we've got this great offer. What do you think? And you'd be surprised at sometimes how many sellers don't want to go through the pain of showing their house. You never know what their household makeup is. And so if you have dogs, like I have my 3 dogs that you heard earlier barking during this live stream, dogs and kids and keeping a house clean. Whenever you have a hot house with like lots of activity and frenzy, it can be exhausting for those sellers to keep it up and kind of be out of the house for that long. So sometimes the seller's like, hey, this is a good offer. This is fair. Let's take it. So I don't really know how often that happens, but it does happen a lot because there's also not that many agents in the market that put that strategy out there, like I said, first. Leonardo, what are your thoughts on purchasing rental properties in this market? Is it worth snatching up the cheaper, not move-in ready homes and renting them out? So the good thing about this market is not only is demand for houses high, but also the demand for rental homes is high. And it really depends on how much cash money you have available to purchase a rental home right now in this market. One of the challenging things is that interest rates are high, so that the cost of borrowing is high, and investor loans are even higher than the normal buyer that is buying and living in that house. So you got to factor that in, and you're going to have to factor in the fact that most of these are going to need a little bit of updating or new paint, new carpet to kind of appeal and get the best rent that you can possibly get in that area. So a lot of times, if you're looking to put down 20, 25% as an investor to get that investment loan, it is hard to make the numbers work, especially here in the Metro Atlanta area. Now, if you're someone that has a lot of cash and you can park it into that house and you can like make it cash flow, and you're okay with kind of like parking that investment for a while and letting someone else pay off the rest of that mortgage and using that as a overall strategy, go for it. That is a prime reason to do it. But it's really hard to make the numbers work in the Metro Atlanta area. I have another person that watched the live stream locally and reached out to me a couple months ago, and we've been kind of playing around and looking at areas, and they have a very healthy budget with, a good down payment. And yet it's still so hard once you factor in property taxes and vacancy rates and a property manager. There's just not a whole lot of margin there. So it can be very, very difficult. But your best opportunity for those types of rentals is if you can find your neighbor that's selling grandma's house that just died and they don't want to put it on the market because they don't want to deal with everything. Like those are the types of opportunities where you can make the numbers work. We talked about that one. So do you think investors and iBuyers ramp back up their buying activity? I don't think so. I think the good news is that the iBuyer, so Open-Door, OfferPad, making cash offers on houses and kind of holding on to that inventory or either reselling it. I do think overall those big investment companies are still a little bit scared off by this market, and they want to wait until there's a lot more certainty before they invest a lot of money because they have a lot of money already invested in the market. So we're not seeing that quite as much. Adrian, I'm interested in purchasing a home in North Atlanta area, so I'd like to know if I should get a loan from the state in which where you live, which is New York, or just come out to Atlanta to get a loan. Oh, I love this question, and it's such a good one. So thank you for asking it. So a lot of times, sometimes you can find that your lender that you already know in New York might say, hey, I'm also licensed in Georgia. The lenders that I recommend that you work with, they're licensed pretty much all in the Southeast. So they could help you buy a home in Florida or South Carolina, Tennessee. And yet, let me explain to you why I think using a local lender is so powerful. Local lenders, when you work with a great agent like myself, we work with really good lenders. And these are good lenders, great lenders that I've vetted out that do an excellent job for my clients, because my job literally depends on how well they can help you get into that loan and their close rate. So if I'm partnering you with someone that does a really crappy job and that is consistently dropping the ball, I'm not getting paid. My family isn't eating, and you're not getting what you want out of this. And then my reputation's on the line. So a really great local agent is going to partner you with a really great local lender, that really great local lender likely has great network and relationships with other agents in that area. And so here's where this comes into play. It happens a lot in multiple offer situations, and it just happened in a situation with one of my buyers. I called up the lender. I'm like, hey, we are making an offer on this. So one of the things I always do for my buyers, anytime we submit an offer, my lender is calling that listing agent. So they're copied on that email, they get the agent's number, and the expectation is whether it's 6 o'clock at night or 9 o'clock at night that we call or that we submit that offer, that my lender is then reaching out to that agent and saying, hey, Sarah just sent over an offer on these buyers. Let me tell you, they are fantastic. They're great. They've already been through pre-approval process. I've already vetted all their documents. Slam dunk. Can't wait to work with you again. So likely they've already worked with this agent before, and that agent has a lot of confidence of knowing what a great lender this is, and that puts a little bit more trust into the process. So when that agent is going back to the seller and saying, okay, here are the offers that we have, or here's this one really good offer, the only offer that we have, and y'all, I've worked with this lender before. They're fantastic. He called me. He already gave me all the information. This is a really good sign. That's what you want in a lending relationship. And so that's why I really strongly suggest that you use a local lender. And so I would love to connect you with my great local lenders. And so my contact information is below this video. They're fantastic. So can your out-of-state lender do it? Sometimes yes, if they're licensed. And that local relationship is going to go a long way. Now, if you're using a lender that works for one of the big companies like Bank of America, Wells Fargo, Rocket Mortgage, hands down, a local lender is going to save you a ton of money and your sanity. I can't stress that enough. They're going to save you a lot of gray hairs and make this a really, really great experience and also save you some money. So that's important too. Leonardo, I've had a situation where the selling agent said there were multiple offers over asking and they were closing the bid soon. The home ended up sitting on the market for 2 more weeks. Yeah. So one of the things that we did not talk about in kind of like our tool belt, and this is something that I like to use, and it's called an escalation clause. And not all agents know about this, and not all agents use this. And so basically what an escalation clause is that if I have a listing agent tell me that there's multiple offers, I go back to my buyer and say, okay, great. Here's how we're going to play this. Let's use an escalation clause. And basically what it says is that if the seller receives an offer over our offer that nets that seller more money, we would automatically increase our offer without having to go back and do the paperwork. It's in the clause. It says that this offer automatically increases $2,000 or whatever number you want to put in there above the next highest offer that the agent has received, not to exceed whatever your maximum purchase price is. So for example, let's just say that our max purchase price was $475 and the offer was at $465. So, and let's just say that the agent got an offer at $470. That means that our offer would go to $472 and we would kind of leapfrog that other offer. Now, the protection that you have here as a buyer is that the remaining part of that clause states that in order for that new price to go into effect, the agent has to provide proof of that offer that kind of kicked that escalation clause into effect. So essentially the seller has to send back a counter offer, and then they also have to say, okay, here's the offer where they offered $470 that caused your offer to go to $472. It's pretty hard to do a fake offer from an agent, and also that agent's reputation is on the line as well. So just know that. And I can't really speak exactly to that situation, but sometimes we also have a lot of fraud or shady people, I should say, sometimes making offers on homes that are all cash offers. So sometimes a seller will get an all cash offer on a house in a multiple offer situation that will seem very appealing. And with the cash offer, you have to provide proof of funds as part of the offer. So you have to provide proof that, hey, I have all this cash sitting in a bank that I can go forward and do this. You'll be surprised at how often a agent will, or a seller will take and accept an offer, and then that buyer does not ever show proof of funds. And then it raises some red flags. And then there's a couple of days of back and forth saying, hey, where are your proof of funds? Or what you sent over really isn't proof of funds. And so sometimes that can kind of eat up some days, or be a situation where a seller thought they were working with a legitimate buyer and maybe it wasn't really legitimate. Or maybe the agent was a liar. I would hate to think that that's the case. Usually it's not benefiting typically the seller to lie in that situation, because that's, oh, you got to think that the agent's not getting paid either until that deal closes. So they have a strong, urgency also to legitimately get that contract or get something under contract. So there's been some weird, funky scenarios that have happened, but hopefully maybe you had another opportunity on that house, or maybe that just wasn't the house that was meant to be for you. So if you have any questions about the housing market, go ahead and ask those. We're answering all your questions about moving to Georgia, buying here, selling here, wherever you're at. I would love to answer your question. If you haven't already, don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel. And today we covered, kind of like multiple offers. Yes, they're back in the Metro Atlanta area for the good houses in the good areas. We kind of discussed some of the things that you can do in a multiple offer situation, kind of like tools in your tool belt that can make your offer even stronger. There's more that we didn't quite get into, but I do have a really great detailed video that really goes into all of those different strategies. It's somewhere here on my channel. I'll make sure to put the link here for you to go back and find that for y'all that are watching this on the replay. Sorry, I'm messing with things on the back end here and can't find my button that I was looking for. I wanted to share with y'all one thing that I thought was very interesting. So I came across this article. Let's see. Let me pull up my screen for you. All right. So this was an article in the Atlanta Business Chronicle. And this states that Georgia is the top state for all cash home sales. And this was very surprising to me. It was definitely something that we as real estate agents saw in 2022. So it says that's according to Adam Data Solutions, which shows that cash is still king across the US. And so nationally in 2022, all cash sales for homes accounted for 36% of home sales. That just blew me away. I did not know that that's essentially saying like 1 out of every 3 houses that sold in the US in 2022 sold to someone that was paying all cash, no loan involved whatsoever. It said that was the highest rate since 2013. And then it says in Georgia, cash sales accounted for 57% of home purchases in 2022. So if you're a buyer and you're making an offer, we definitely saw this in 2021, definitely in the first part of 2022. Whenever we were making an offer on a home, one of my first calls to that listing agent was, how many offers do you have and how many of those are cash? Because it can be kind of difficult to compete against a cash offer when you are someone that is financing. So if you're a seller, cash is pretty much a guaranteed sale if they can do the proof of funds. And a lot of time these cash buyers have the ability, because there's not a lender involved, there's not an appraiser involved, the paperwork is much easier. So the process can happen in as little as like 7 days. So you can make an offer, say I want it in all cash, and literally sign the paperwork in 7 days and the house is yours. Whereas with a traditional loan, that's going to take about 30 days. Sometimes you can make it happen in as little as like 20 days, but the average time period is 30 days. So cash sales accounted for 57% of all home purchases. Now, this is all of Georgia. And it goes on to say that in Metro Atlanta area specifically, cash sales accounted for 53.5% of home sales in 2022. And to Anthony's point earlier, it said the high share of cash sales reflects Georgia's popularity among investors and its strong population growth. So you have to keep in mind that a lot of you who are watching this channel, I'm sure, are probably thinking about relocating from areas where you're in a high cost of living area, where your home value is really high, and you might be sitting on a lot of equity. So you might be in a position where you can sell your house where you're currently at, move here to Georgia, and have enough equity to pay cash for your house in Georgia. I know personally we worked with a lot of cash buyers over the past couple of years that have relocated to the area. So, that's something that's very important to know. And it's not surprising to me that we've seen this amount of cash buyers in the Metro Atlanta area market. So I'm just curious, am I the only one kind of like shocked by that number? Like I knew it was a lot because I encountered that day in and day out, but I just didn't know that over half of the houses that were sold to cash buyers. I would say probably it would be interesting to see. I think if we could kind of like go back and dig into that data, I would say probably 30% of those were these big iBuyer companies that were buying up a lot of inventory in the Metro Atlanta market. Some of them either to resell them, or a lot of these companies were holding them for rentals. So it'd be super interesting to see what percentage of that was actual people that were buying the house to live in it personally, and how much of that was because of these investors that were buying the house. So did that shock anybody else? Just me? So it's just very shocking. All right, y'all. Well, if you have any questions about making a move, make sure you hurry up and put them in the chat. Otherwise, we will wrap up this live stream and I will look forward to seeing you this week. So we drop videos every single Sunday, and I'm trying out something different. So I'd love to see what your thoughts are on the video that's coming this Sunday. It's a little bit of a different format, and I'd love your feedback to see if this is something that you like or if you prefer a different style of video. But if you're thinking about making a move to Georgia, to the Metro Atlanta area, please make sure that you reach out. My contact information is directly below this video. You can go to my website. You can text me on that phone number. You can send us an email. But I would love to be your real estate agent and personally help you find your great home here in the Metro Atlanta area. So I definitely appreciate you joining us every single week and asking all of these great questions. So again, I got a new video dropping every single Sunday and a new twist on one coming this Sunday. So I'd love to know your comments on it and your thoughts. Watch that when it comes out and let me know. Otherwise, I will see you next Wednesday right back here at 6 o'clock Eastern, answering and talking about all of your questions and answers about the Northeast Metro Atlanta real estate market. See you next week.